So we look closely at that leadership change in China. Will we see a more aggressive China over the next decade? That's the question we're asking tonight, and of course what it all means for India. First, I'd like to go across to New York tonight to my colleague Namrata Brar, who was covering the US elections for us. Namrata, how is the Chinese leadership change being viewed in the American media there? I know it's a big story, but is there a wariness? Do we know what the media is saying in terms of its commentary on this change?
Nidhi, I think in the near term, media is not talking about it. As you would imagine, they're focusing domestically and internally. So the talk is all about the fiscal cliff, the new Obama administration in the next 4 years. But in the long term, I will give you a definite answer. Yes, China is going to get more aggressive and everyone's talking about it. Internally, again, politics on the near term will dominate domestically in China, but in the medium to long term, the composition of leadership is not just the president, who, as Xi Jinping, is considered more reformist, but it's the nature of elders, a 7-member committee which is getting more hardcore in terms of their reservations against the United States, particularly in their role in the disputed islands with Japan.
Namrata, you know, there has been a sense that there have been simmering tensions between China and America for some time now, but that Beijing is probably happy Mitt Romney isn't the president, because he would have perhaps taken on a much more difficult stance vis-a-vis Beijing. What do you think President Obama would do differently in his second term with China, if he does anything differently?
I've been talking actually to a lot of Chinese reporters here in New York about the same issue, Nidhi, and there is a very categorical statement coming in that China doesn't really care whether Obama or Romney became president. The comments that we heard was Mitt Romney really cloaking his China business over the years and trying to shift the rhetoric to anti-China. So that was just a political play, and China knew that was happening. That's the understanding that I've been given. These reporters and my sources who have China-US relations as well tell me that really what they believe is good about the current Obama administration is continuity. So no nasty surprises in that sense. And they feel the next 4 years would be a continuation of the same. But as I mentioned again, it is definitely going to get more aggressive in the medium to long term on lots of issues, trade being one of them, and the political overturns that we've seen on both the disputed islands as well as North Korean relations. We hear about Chinese submarines now carrying nukes in the next 2 years.
Namrata Brar, thanks very much for joining us there from New York. And let's get straight to our eminent panel tonight. Joining us on the program this evening is India's former ambassador to China, Mr. Chandrasekhar Dasgupta, who was in China from 1993 to 1996. We have Professor Shrikant Kondapalli, Professor of Chinese Studies at the Jawaharlal Nehru University. Also joining us tonight is Zohar Abdul Karim, the Asia editor of Time magazine, someone who knows and follows the events in China very closely. Also with us tonight is well-known defense analyst, Lieutenant General Shankar Prasad. We'll also be going across to Beijing live any moment now to be joined by the China correspondent of The Hindu, Anand Krishnan, who's been covering this Congress for us and will give us an insider's view of what's been going on there. Let me ask Mr. Dasgupta first. What do we know about Xi Jinping? Because there are very sketchy details, as is the Chinese tradition, about his life, what he really stands for. He grew up wealthy, yet he has a common touch. But do we know a lot about him? Do we know enough about him?
I've never had much faith in the occult science of Kremlinology. You know, trying to figure out, to divine the policies of a Chinese, of a communist government through an analysis of the personalities of incoming leaders. We don't really know enough to form a judgment on that basis. And I think we are on much safer grounds if we look at the objective situations, the objective circumstances which any government in China will have to take into consideration in shaping its policies. What are the constraints and what are the opportunities which the existing situation offers China, and how the Chinese likely to respond in the circumstances.
So not so much the personality that would determine that?
No, I'd say the objective circumstances, economic, political and military. That is what really we ought to look at if we want to understand what course of action China
Professor Kondapalli, or at some point does the personality matter? What will Xi be different from the way President Hu conducted himself? Do we know enough about him?
Absolutely. I think personality does matter in the Chinese. Mao Zedong's personality mattered for 600 million people in China at the time. Xi Jinping studied in Tsinghua University, but most of the time he was absent from his studies because Cultural Revolution, there was not much study, and they were sent to the rural areas for studying in these places, learning from the peasants.
And he spent 7 years in those areas.
The WikiLeaks cable suggests that he was not able to complete his PhD when he was studying in Tsinghua University. One personality trait that could be useful for our analysis is the Chinese sports activity Tai Chi Chuan generally brings the force and passes it on to the others, so that you are not consummated in the transit. Xi Jinping carefully worked out throughout his life, especially the last 15 years or so, to become vice president. And then now, one of the personality traits then is not to get into any controversy, not to
yes, he's not identified with any sort of group or any. He's
he was
kind of a middle of the road guy.
He was identified with the Shanghai Gang, where the reformist orientation. He served as party secretary in Fujian, Zhejiang province,
and he was briefly in charge of Shanghai. Yes.
So this is basically the reform faction which he is now heading. The other personality factor is he organized. His wife is a Buddhist, Peng Li Yuan, who is a major general in the PLA. She is a singer. She entertains the PLA troops. Because she is a Buddhist, he organized, Mr. Xi organized a World Buddhist Conference where he invited the Dalai Lama as well during that time. It indicated that he would come under pressures in terms of the religious related issues.
India's #1 news app just got even better. Download NDTV's new app, fully optimized for retina display, full screen view, faster response time, and Sudoku. NDTV's new iPad app. Download now.